One of the most significant updates to my book covers the so-called Aurora attacks on Google and other high technology companies in China. Google stunned many people when it announced that it was considering pulling out of China entirely because it had been hacked repeatedly. They didn't say by the government, but the implication was clear because they tied it also to censorship and other problems doing business in China. There are a number of things that were very interesting about this. Wide-scale Chinese espionage, economic espionage mainly, against Western companies has been going on for years, and it's sort of an open secret. But it's very rare that a company will cop to it, that will say our defenses were breached. And Google did that for a few reasons. One of them is that Google is basically run by 3 people. They have common shareholders, but a majority of the voting control is in the hands of just 3 people. And if they decide they want to do something, they can do it. Many other technology companies, if they did something like that, the shareholders would be calling for their heads. They didn't in this case, and they wouldn't have gotten anywhere if they had. But in my book and in my writing for the Financial Times, I did trace pretty good evidence that tied the attacks to the Chinese military. There are 2 key points here. One is that the attacks were launched from servers that were at a school that has been dominated by the Chinese military. Not only that, but the data that was exfiltrated from Google went back to the same servers inside the military-affiliated school. That's one point. The second point is that the exploit code that was used, the so-called zero-day attack that was used, was written by a researcher, a security researcher in China in his 30s, who had previously complained to sources of mine that the military was always looking over his shoulder, that whenever he found a new vulnerability, he had to disclose it to the authorities. So it would be quite a coincidence if that man's work had gone through some other means and was used by somebody in the Ukraine or Russia. It sort of beggars belief. So in my view, it's very clear that this was a Chinese government-sanctioned operation.